Granite Peak is one of the biggest ski resorts in the Midwest with 700 vertical feet, 55 runs, and 3 high-speed lifts. It can't get much better, right? What's going on, Midwest skiers and riders? Matthew Zaransky with MidwestSkiers.com, and earlier this week, Granite Peak revealed 4 proposals for a future expansion. And since you guys are all a little too lazy to read through all the details, we're gonna give you guys the Cliff Notes version.
Sounds great.
Now before we begin, I want to say that I'm going to keep the majority of this video to just the facts and hold my thoughts and comments till the very end. I'll put some timestamps below if you want to jump ahead, otherwise I'll do my best to keep things brief but informative. Another important note is that the DNR is taking public feedback on all of these alternatives and will be using this feedback to help craft a future master plan. That said, if you do support the Granite Peak expansion, be sure to let the DNR know by filling out the comments form before July 14th. We'll drop a link below. But without further ado, let's dive right into these 4 alternatives. Alternative number 1 is by far the easiest to break down because it's just doing nothing to the current state of the resort. No new lifts, no mountain biking, no expansion. Now I do want to be clear here, this doesn't mean not updating anything at all around the resort, just nothing in terms of expanding the resort's current footprint. So they could still update infrastructure around the resort, but they wouldn't be able to do anything outside of their currently leased land, which is indicated by the yellow highlighted dashed line on the map. Under Alternative 1 and based on this report, winter visitation is expected to decrease at a rate of 3% per year, resulting in 41,500 less winter visitations at the 10-year mark and bringing the annual total visitation to about 420,000 per year. Economically, sales are expected to reach $29.4 million, with 460 jobs created and just over $3 million in tax revenue. Now before moving on to Alternative 2, I want to discuss what they are labeling as community connectivity, which was presented as a separate element but is naturally included in Alternatives 2 through 4. This element could be developed on its own without any addition of an expansion and consists of adding new multi-use trails and community access points for easier access to the state park. These access points are shown on the maps as blue dots, and the proposed multi-use trails are shown as colored dashed lines. If this option was implemented on its own, it would obviously have little effect on the overall economics and would actually decrease revenue and jobs, presumably from the added cost of the development. Now, Alternative 2 begins to bring in some changes to winter operations and introduces summer operations for the resort. But let's start with the winter stuff first. The first thing you will notice is the addition of a lift on the far east side. This lift is labeled K on the map and would open up a handful of intermediately pitched runs. They would also upgrade the Blitzen lift so it would be a high-speed quad and slightly realign it. Santa would also be realigned to allow for more beginner terrain, and lastly, the blizzard carpet would be relocated just above the frosty carpet. A new parking lot would also be constructed with a beginner's lodge and a new pump station. This would all be installed on the northeast side. In addition, Alternative 2 does introduce summer operations with downhill mountain biking. This plan would include lift access mountain biking off of the Blitzen lift, and there would be trails on both the front and back side of the hill, but only the front side would have lift access. Under Alternative 2 and based on this report, winter visitation is expected to remain neutral, and economically, sales are expected to reach $32.8 million with 520 jobs created and about $3.48 million in tax revenue. Alternative 2 obviously includes several additions, but it does not expand into the northwest side of the state park. So let's talk about a plan that does include that, Alternative 3. Alternative 3 includes everything from Alternative 2, but adds the addition of 2 more lifts and a much more expansive summer operations plan. From the winter side of things, you will notice 2 additional lifts on the western side of the hill. One would be a combination lift, which would include chairs and gondolas, and this would open up a brand new beginner section that would have runs that are consistently pitched from the top of the hill to the bottom. And this is something that Granite Peak has always lacked due to its L-shaped mountain. There would also be the addition of 3 conveyors to this expansive beginner section. You'll also notice on the far west side a run that looks like it's spotted, and this is what Granite Peak is calling a groomable glade. It's a run that offers pockets of trees, but the trails are wide enough to get a groomer through. This gives beginners the feeling of tree skiing with the safety and space of a groomed run. There would also be the addition of a brand new western base area, potential for ski-in, ski-out accommodations, and a new expansive parking lot and new maintenance facility. And this would all be a massive upgrade from Granite Peak's current, let's just say, cramped base lodge.
That guy in a little coat.
From the summer operations, we see some big changes as well. Summer operations would now include more expansive downhill mountain biking, a mountain coaster, aerial ropes course, and a zip line. There would also be 3 glamping sites along this western expansion as well. Downhill mountain biking would be expanded to 2 lifts and now include many more trails in that expanded northwest area of the state park. Under Alternative 3 and based off of this report, winter visitation is expected to grow by 136,000 more visits at the 10-year mark. And with the more expansive summer plan, the total annual visitation number would go to over 700,000 per year. Economically, they're expecting some massive changes here. Sales are expected to reach 66 million with over 1,000 jobs created and about 6.72 million in tax revenue, which over doubles Alternative 2's numbers from the economic standpoint. And then there is Alternative 4, and this is by far the most ambitious plan that was proposed. Alternative 4 calls for everything included in Alternative 3, but adds another lift labeled J on the map on this far west side. This allows that groomable glade section to be extended and adds additional runs as well. This additional lift will allow for better skier management on that western side, as skiers and riders will be directed to 3 lifts instead of just 2.
Because 3 is better than 2.
The other major difference is the addition of a dedicated mountain bike lift that would run down the backside of the hill. This allows the mountain bike trails to be moved to the backside instead of everything being focused on the front side of the mountain. This lift can also be used during the winter months for fat tire mountain biking, which is really cool and something super unique. Under Alternative 4 and based on this report, winter visitation is expected to grow by 148,000 more visits at the 10-year mark per year, and with the more expansive summer plan, the total annual visitation would go to 740,000 per year. Economically, there would be improvements, but not as much as we saw from Alternative 2 to Alternative 3. Sales are expected to reach 71 million with over 1,100 jobs created and about 7.23 million in tax revenue, which is about a 7.5% increase across these stats compared to Alternative 3. Now, before we dive into my thoughts on all this, let's do a quick recap. Alternative 1 is basically doing nothing. No expansion, no summer operations. This leads to a potential decline in revenue and visits that could be detrimental to the future of Granite Peak. Alternative 2 is only expanding on the east side. This option does avoid development on the northwest side of the park, but lacks any substantial summer operations as it only has a very limited mountain biking opportunity. This option does increase sales, jobs, and tax revenue, adding to the local economy, however. Alternative 3 expands into the northwest side of the state park and adds an expansive beginners area. This allows the summer operations to be expanded extensively as well, resulting in a huge jump in potential sales, jobs, and tax revenue, over doubling Alternative 2's projections. And then Alternative 4 expands even more into that northwest side of the state park and adds a dedicated mountain biking lift off of the back of the hill. This allows the ski hill to add more runs and utilize the majority of the front side of the hill. There is an increase in sales, jobs, and revenue, but not nearly as large as the jump when compared to Alternative 2 to Alternative 3. So did you guys catch all of that?
Sure.
So now I want to point out that this expansion has also been brought up in the past, and it has been met with some resistance from the local community. In fact, there's actually a group called Leave Rib Mountain Alone that is against any expansion from Granite Peak, as they feel it'll ruin the natural environment of Rib Mountain. And while I do understand some of their concerns, I do believe an expansion would fit the stated purpose of a state park, to provide areas for public recreation and for public education and conservation and nature study. Not only will this expansion allow for more revenue producing recreation, but also free to use recreation as well. In addition, the easier access through these proposed community access points allows the park to be optimized and ultimately will lead to more visitations. Additionally, Granite Peak's expansion would significantly increase the local economy and would only continue to cement Wausau as a destination city in Wisconsin, especially for outdoor enthusiasts. This is best seen by the University of Wisconsin's 2014 study, that concluded that state parks serve as important drivers of local economic vitality within gateway communities across the state. In my opinion, as long as Granite Peak works closely with the state to ensure that building does not impact sensitive habitats and they build in a sustainable way, I see nothing wrong with any of the proposed expansions. So now that you know that I support expanding, let's talk about which options I think are best. So obviously that leaves alternative 1 out.
You get out of here.
Alternative 2 offers a modest expansion, but not enough to really bring a substantial difference between winter and summer operations. This is especially a concern when introducing downhill mountain biking. As some of you know, this summer I did take up mountain biking and I have learned a ton of things. Oh boy. One is that a lot of ski resorts like to attempt downhill mountain biking, but a lot don't find success. And a lot of this boils down to the growing number of free-to-use community-built trails and a rise in e-bikes and enduro bikes. That said, downhill mountain bike parks really need to offer something substantial in order to attract enough bikers to justify the operational costs. In alternative 2 just wasn't hitting that for me. I don't think Granite Peak would find much success in the mountain bike community with this alternative. Alternative 3 and 4, on the other hand, give Granite Peak a great variety of mountain biking and summer options, adding to that experience. In my opinion, I think 3 and 4 are both great options, but I can't help picture how amazing alternative 4 would be for both summer and winter operations. Expanded skiing terrain would be a huge step for Granite Peak. It would bring them that beginner terrain that they have always desperately needed, and an increase in western base lodge would help them with their current bottleneck in their off-slope operations. A dedicated mountain bike lift would be the first of its kind in the Midwest and could really drive a ton of traffic to the town of Wausau during the summer months. This expansion would also mean a ton to the Midwest skiing community, and I believe it would positively impact not only Granite Peak, but all of the Midwest ski hills in the surrounding states. It would likely expose more people to the sport and solidify the fact that you don't always have to travel far to access great skiing. So if you guys want to support Granite Peak's expansion, head on over and fill out Wisconsin DNR's online input form, as they will be using this data from the public to help build their master plan. Personally, I will be checking for alternative number 4, but I think both 3 and 4 offer amazing long-term benefits for outdoor enthusiasts. Well, there you guys have it, a breakdown of Granite Peak's proposed expansions. If you guys want to learn more, I'll be sure to drop links below, and I'll be sure to keep all of you guys up to date on this expansion news as more becomes available. I hope all of you guys have a great off season, pray for snow, and I'll see you guys out there.